We're in a bit of an odd situation here because the last election that took place in Thailand was in December 2007 in the wake of the 2006 military coup. And that election was won by parties who were loyal to the former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra, who was actually ousted in that military coup. However, the party that won that election was not actually able to stay in power for very long. Within a year of the election, it was dissolved by the courts, and a faction of that party crossed to the other side and joined the opposition Democrat Party, and the Democrat Party was then able to form the present government. So we actually have the government that's in power now are the guys who lost the election last time. If we look back over the last few general elections, going right back to 2001, which is when the first Pro-Thaksin party contested, the Pro-Thaksin parties have always won the election. The Democrat Party has been in power quite a bit over the past 20 years, but has only actually won an election once in the last 20 years, and you have to go back to September 1992. And then they won by only 2 seats. The elections are going to take place on July the 3rd. The incumbent party, the Democrats, have dissolved parliament earlier than they had to. They could have gone right to December this year. The Democrat Party was hoping that because the pro-Thaksin politicians, many of them are banned from running in the election, and because the sort of pro-Thaksin political activists have been in a very weakened position since the collapse of that protest movement a year ago, that this was a good opportunity for them to get in early before the pro-Thaksin forces had chance really to regroup. So Thaksin himself isn't around, but what he has done is nominate his younger sister, Yingluck, to be the party's prime ministerial candidate in his place. So we don't have Thaksin, but we have Thaksin's sister, who has the same surname, and she's young, she's in her early 40s, she's quite an appealing character in certain respects, but she doesn't have any political experience, and it's clear that the only reason why she's in this position is because of her proximity to Thaksin himself. So we don't have Thaksin, but we have a younger Thaksin surrogate in his stead. The Democrats had been assuming that Yingluck was not going to be able to cut much of a sway politically, given her lack of experience and her close association with Thaksin, who's obviously a controversial figure. That hasn't been true so far. I think that the Democrats and much of the media in Thailand that's rather pro-government has been working on the assumption that it would be relatively straightforward for this government to stay in power after the election. That doesn't really accord with the electoral geography of Thailand and the fact that the Democrats, as I said, haven't won the election since 1992. The Democrats really have a lot of structural problems in fighting elections. And because she's young, she's appealing, people don't really know about her, she doesn't have a negative image because there isn't a lot of baggage about her personally. So Yingluck has been able to go around presenting herself as this newcomer on the political stage who might have something to offer, who's a bit different from anybody, and of course would be Thailand's first female prime minister if they were to win the election. So Yingluck has more going for her than perhaps the Democrats had anticipated. And so far she's benefited from the novelty of her image and her candidacy, and she's been getting some very good showing in early polls. It's really an open secret that the Democrat Party, the military, and elements of what I call the network monarchy have been in a kind of alliance. So the Democrat Party has a lot of backup from Thailand's traditional institutions, and that's one reason why the party has been able to stay in power despite the fact that they basically lost the election last time. So one of the big questions in approaching this election is going to be, to what extent are the voters going to determine the outcome, and to what extent are those other institutions going to determine the outcome? Now, the lesson of previous elections has been that election results are not normally fixable in advance. The quote-unquote wrong party can often win elections, and has won most of the elections of the past couple of decades, what tends to happen is not that the wrong party doesn't win the election, but that after the wrong party has won the election, there is some post-election reckoning and reorganization, which leads either to a dissolution of parliament and fresh elections, or to some sort of reorganization along the lines that we saw in 2008. So I think we have to look at a number of factors here. The military, in particular, has been making a lot of anti-Thaksin noises and making it very clear that they wouldn't welcome a victory by his party. But in the end, do they have the capacity to stop that? So we'll have to look not just at the result, but what happens in the few months or year or so after the result, because the 1 year after the election in Thailand is a period of potential reorganization and change, where a lot of factors other than the will of the voters come into play, and where traditional institutions may be influencing things behind the scenes.